What's up guys, today we're going to be going over the walking Nuke 2.0. It is back and better than ever, and even though some things have changed since the old solar subclass, we're going to try our best to make it do the exact same things that the old build did, which was a little bit of everything to be honest. Really high damage output from all the buffs to your weapons, explosions all over the place, wells all over the place, sunspots left and right, and overall just one of the best builds in the game. And when Solar 3.0 first came out, this is one of the first builds I tried, but it felt like it was missing something, and I finally found that missing part. So let's just jump straight into it. First, looking at all the different ways we're going to buff our weapon damage. So first with Ember of Torches for the Radiant when we use our powered melee attack, and with Titan we have infinite throwing hammers, so this will work very easily and you'll have this all the time. Simply just throw your hammer at a target, get the Radiant, and that'll be a 25% buff, which is stacking with other stuff in the game. So what we can stack with it first is gonna be Font of Might, which is when we pick up the Solar Elemental Wells. It'll be yet another 25% increase to our solar weapon damage. And finally, the last thing we can do is the Path of the Burning Steps for the Firewalker buff, which is when we just get solar kills in general, we'll get up to ×4 Firewalker, which will be increased damage. And this has been nerfed quite a bit, and as you'll see, it's now only 12%, down from I believe it was 40, so not even close to what it used to be. But as you see, in total we give ourselves up to a 75% buff to our solar weapon damage. And for now we'll just stick with this exotic, but later in the video I'll show off some alternatives. And of course we have the new Ember of Empyrean to give us more or less infinite radiant and restoration by just simply getting solar weapon kills or ability kills to extend the duration of both of those buffs. And before we move on to the next part of the build, a quick word from today's video sponsor. This video was sponsored by World of Tanks PC. World of Tanks is a team-based MMO action game dedicated to mid-20th century armored tank combat that offers massive battles across open fields, climb steep hills, sneak through forests, tear across deserts, and pick your battles in urban and even industrial zones. World of Tanks offers over 40 battle arenas where you can show off your tank arsenal, including tank destroyers, artillery, light, medium, and even heavy tanks. World of Tanks offers a huge variety of gameplay, so you can play how you want, either rush and guns blazing, or be more sneaky and ambush your opponents. With over 600 tanks, there's always a new way to play every single battle. And all this is free to play, which means you can jump in whenever you want and join the global community of over 100 million players and share your passion for not only the gameplay, but also the historical accuracy and authentic models of all the different tanks in the game. As you play, you'll earn experience and be able to modify and upgrade your tank, creating the perfect beast ready for any challenge. So if you're ready to join the battle and make the ultimate tank, we can go ahead and click the link down below and use invite code TANKMANIA, which includes Excelsior, a tier 5 tank, 250k credits, 7-day premium access, then 3 rental tanks for 10 battles each, the Tiger 131, the Cromwell B, and the T-3485M, all of which are tier 6. Once again, click the link down below to join World of Tanks and then use invite code TANKMANIA. Thanks to World of Tanks for sponsoring today's video. So we've already went over the weapon buffs. Now for the crazy explosions, using this new artifact mod Raise of Precision, while Radiant Solar Precision Final Blows cause combatants to ignite, and I am in love with this mod. My biggest complaint so far with Solar 3.0 is it just felt too hard to ignite things in the game, just because the way the scorching works, and this mod definitely fixes that and makes it so you can ignite pretty much every enemy in the game. It's more or less just Firefly times 10 on every single precision kill with a solar weapon. And these ignitions do crazy damage and have a really good radius, and we have a few things buffing them up. Ember of Eruption to increase the radius, Ember of Blistering, that way when we get defeats with ignitions we'll get some grenade energy back. And then we finally have another artifact mod right here, which will increase the damage and increase the radius of the ignitions. But as far as I can tell, with this mod on and off, first off, sometimes it doesn't even show damage numbers on ignitions, which means, you know, it's gonna be pretty hard to tell if it's actually doing something. But if you go over to Carl, with and without the mod on, the number is the exact same, and the health bar seems to be the exact same also, so it's hard to tell if this mod is even doing anything. It doesn't appear so, but it might be increasing the radius, which once again is pretty much impossible to test without something like the Tribute Hall to see what the radius is. So use this mod if you want, but it's hard to tell if it's actually doing anything. but if you need more energy on your mark, maybe take it off and use something else, which I might do down the road, because with this current setup, you only have 1 energy left over for your actual mod. But all in all, with this part of the build, once you become radiant, which is going to be extremely easy, just throw your hammer at a target and hit them to become radiant. Then all of your solar precision kills will be like the biggest firefly explosion you'll ever see, doing the most damage. And yeah, it's pretty strong. And obviously you can counter this with Sunshot, which will just add even more explosions on top of the ignitions. And yeah, nothing's really going to survive these headshots. I mean, yeah, it just kills everything. But at the same time, I don't even think using Sunshot is the best option. If we use a weapon with Incandescent, for example, the Drang or the Mini Tool, what that allows is, because of the way the new Sunspots work, you can get Sunspots on solar ability kills, super hits, then also defeating scorched targets. And Sunspots still give you increased ability recharge rate. They also scorch targets themselves and apply restoration to you. So we definitely want as many Sunspots as possible, and with the Sunshot, it is impossible to scorch the target. I even tried with this fragment where it says ignitions will spread scorch to targets, but it will only scorch them if they survive, which for the most part is going to be pretty much nothing, because the initial explosion of the Sunshot plus ignition will just kill everything. So we want a lot of Sunspots with this build. We need to use the incandescent weapons, which aren't bad anyways. And what this combo will do is, when you get a kill with the weapon, it will scorch the nearby targets. Then if it's a headshot, obviously it will cause ignition, which will then kill all these scorched targets and create these sunspots. And if you're using the Drang with this build with all the different weapon buffs going on, I mean, it's more or less a hand cannon anyways, and you'll be one hitting a lot of the enemies. And it feels just as good as the Sunshot, because you're going to be one hitting things and they're all going to die from the ignition anyways. Now moving on to the ability spam part of the build. So we have infinite throwing hammers by default, then using whatever grenade you want. I usually use thermite, but they're all really good choices. Some of the things we have going on to get our grenade back faster: first is the blistering, which we already showed off, where kills with the ignitions themselves will give us grenade energy back. Then we have the increased recharge rate from being in the sunspots. And then finally we have a lot of the typical mods: bountiful wells. Then we have elemental armaments to create wells from our weapon final blows. Then we have explosive well maker, which will be happening from a little bit of everything. Then we have Phantom Might, as we showed off before, for the 25% buff. Then also on our boots we have double innervation to get chunks of a grenade back on orb pickup. And to create orbs with this build, we have harmonic siphon on our helmet to create them from our sword weapon final blows. And finally we have well of ordnance to get a higher chunk of our grenade back when we pick up the wells. And all in all, this isn't like the craziest nade recharge build of all time. It is pretty fast, and depending on how many things you defeat with ignitions, it'll be even quicker. But your grenade is definitely not the star of the show in this build, but we're still gonna be getting it back pretty fast, so that's gonna be really good. And then just another way to create sunspots and obviously kill a lot of enemies. And that brings me to our second aspect, Roaring Flames. And the way you usually get Roaring Flames is from ability kills, but you can also get stacks from ignition kills, which means with this build will easily be at ×3 at all times. And now with that increase, usually our hammer hits for this number right here. Now with ×3 Roaring Flames, it'll go up to this number. And finally we can also add in a 1-2 punch shotgun, and a lot of these things got nerfed down in the way they stack, but it's still gonna be a little bit more damage, as you see. Now hitting for this number, which is 66,000. So all in all, Roaring Flames by itself is 72.8%. Then if you combo that with 1-2 punch, it's gonna be 130%, so 2.3x melee damage, which is not even close to what it used to be, but still not bad. And finally, capping out the build, if you're using Sunshot, I prefer using this solar linear to take advantage of all these solar buffs to our weapons. But then if you're using the incandescent weapons, for example Drang or Mini Tool, that obviously frees up your exotic slot for something like G-Horn or even Sleeper. And at the beginning of the video I mentioned how Path of the Burning Steps aren't quite what they used to be, so some alternatives that work really well for this build in particular, I think using this helmet right here is pretty good because when you use your barricade or when you become critical health, you'll create a sunspot that will give you restoration ×2, which is way stronger than the restoration ×1 from the normal sunspots. And that is good because we don't have room for classy restoration with this build, which will take up 6 energy slots. And I want to make it super clear, if you are using a build where you have room for classy restoration or you are using this mod, it does not stack in any way with the helmet. They both give ×2 restoration, which means this exotic more or less only creates a sunspot on your barricade, which for most content besides like GMs, I don't think is really worth it because you have sunspots all over the place anyway. So using exotic that just creates one every like 30 seconds is really kind of pointless. But for this build in particular, where we don't have room for that mod, or in future seasons where we don't have that mod anymore, this will obviously be extremely strong. So that is a good pick. You could also use the Synthoceps to further increase your melee damage, which would be really good for those higher health targets. So all in all, this build has a little bit of everything, has really good ad clear with all the different explosions. Every single final blow will be causing an ignition, which will just completely clear everything nearby. You'll have sunspots all over the place, really fast grenade recharge rate. You will be buffing your throwing hammer damage by a lot for those mini bosses and ultras. And then when you get up to a boss fight, you have your exotic of choice, G-Horn, Sleep, or whatever it is. And all of your weapons will be buffed by Radiant, Phantomite, then potentially the exotic boots if you're running those. So yeah, crazy weapon damage, crazy ad clear with all the different explosions, sunspots all over the place, you know, just a little bit of everything. So yeah, this build kind of just covers everything you will ever need in the game. And yeah, I think that is gonna be it for the video. G Fuel is 30% off right now. If you click the link in the description, it'll take you over to their store and automatically apply my discount code, which is ERROR. And this weekend is the anniversary of Tetris, so they have a special promotion on those flavors. But definitely just find something that sounds good to you. A lot of their flavors are very accurate to like the description and the name, so you definitely won't be disappointed. And yeah, I always appreciate all of the support. And I did say in yesterday's video that this video would be the hunter build, but to be honest, I spent like an hour and a half trying to make a cool hunter build. And outside of like the super obvious, just using like the start your skills for Blade Barrage, it didn't feel like there was too many cool or fun builds on hunter. Maybe I just haven't found it yet, but I'm just not a huge fan of throwing knives, which seems to be like the whole loop of hunter. So yeah, I'm definitely gonna keep working at that and hopefully get a cool hunter build out for you guys at some point. But yeah, I think that's gonna be it for the video. Just a little bit of strike gameplay left. Like usual, thanks for watching. Catch you guys next time.